Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. It's your Luton versus Watford match preview. Derby day is upon us. There's been a little bit of a break between the Reading game and Luton on Saturday, but we're back. Watford are back. We're back talking about Watford, and it's the crunch time in this season, and I have to admit, I think the other lads as well, we're starting to get a little bit nervous, but it's the crunch end of the season. Got enough quality, I think, to do it. And we'll be discussing Saturday's game with the lads today. I'm your host, Jacob, joined by Sam and Elliot, as usual, to preview this one. Sam, I'll tell you what, before we get into any chat, lockdown Barnets. Now, as you can see, I've had a trim. Elliot, you had a home trim, I think, didn't you, a couple of weeks ago?
I didn't watch that, yeah.
Sam, if you had to describe your haircut to a Watford player, who would it be? You know, you could go for a Will Hughes, which is calm on the ball, does the job effectively, but quite stylish. Or you could go for maybe a Kika Feminine, which is, probably a skin fade initially because he's that quick down the line, but he probably grows back quite quickly as well. So how would you compare your Watford player to your trim?
That is a difficult question. I would say that I'd go with Tom Cleverley. I'd say it's pretty simple most of the time. It does the job 9 times out of 10, and occasionally it can come out with an absolute banger. So I'd go Tom Cleverley, to be honest with you. Yeah,
tried and tested formula. Elliot, have you got your trim booked? I think it looks all right at the minute, mate. To be honest with you.
I think I've said before it sort of resembles a bird's nest, and I'm going to stick with that. On the player front, I'm trying to think of who I can offend the least in terms of describing a player. I think from years gone by, I'd probably describe it as a Pantilimon.
Nice.
If you don't do anything, no one really notices. But it's when
or an Olauskas comes out of nowhere.
Under the spotlight. Yeah, when it's under the spotlight, people sort of realise the problems with it.
Quality.
There's so much depth over haircut and player comparison. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the man with the best trim. That's PZ7. Oh, phenomenal. See Router as well. Cracking man. Yeah. I'll tell you what. That's enough.
That is the aim. Which I really hope we don't. If there was another lockdown, I'm going full Sebi Pros or Francisco Sierralta. That's what we're going for next time.
And just transform into the Chilean Maldini. Sam, I'll tell you what. We'll get straight into Saturday. How you feeling heading into it?
Do you know what? I've tried my absolute best not to think about it. But I'm now 48 hours before the game. I am surprisingly quite calm about it. I don't really have the Derby day nerves that I thought I would. I don't really have those promotion running nerves that I thought I would. I'm surprisingly calm about the game. I'm confident that we can get the job done. It's still in our hands. It's very much in our hands. So I'm confident that we can get the job done.
Elliot, for you, are you feeling nervous? Because Sam says he's calm, and I don't know if that's 100% accurate. But
No, I won't be come tomorrow. Come tomorrow, I'll be all over the place. But now I feel like I'm in a good place with that.
Yeah, because this is the thing with Derby Day, isn't it? Like, regardless of how both teams are playing going into it, it's always a nervy affair. Elliot, from your perspective, how are you feeling, mate?
Oh, I'm just bricking it, to be honest. I said in the WhatsApp group yesterday, it's not hit me yet, but it's going to hit me, and when it hits me, I'm going to be absolutely like bricking it, and I am now. So it's just, I think it's looking into the game. It's press conference. And it was actually a really positive press conference. So I don't know why it's made me feel more nervous, but just all of the build up, all the talk about this game, and I think I watched too much Swans in Brentford now for my own good. I need to just stop that. But it's just all of it's worrying me. If I can look at it as the positives, and I can say we're in a very good position. We should be able to see this out now, which is great. But I don't know. There's just something right now that worries me, and it doesn't fill me with much joy and much optimism seeing Swansea and Brentford literally back to their best, which they have been now. So I'm nervous for this one.
Yeah, I think the situation is in our hands, right? We've got a 6-point cushion, I believe, and going into the last few games of the season, it is in our hands. That's the main thing. We don't have to rely on other results. And I think Troy mentioned it on Hive Live Extra about when we went up in 2014-15, we had to rely on the likes of Middlesbrough to drop points, other teams around us to drop points. And we don't really have to do that. If we win our games, we go up. It's as simple as that. Just looking ahead to tomorrow, Sam, do you think maybe the lack of fans actually is a bit of an advantage for Watford, not having to go to a packed Kenilworth Road?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think this is, I was thinking about this when I was watching the Champions League last night, but if you look at Dortmund, Man City, I actually thought Man City found it much easier playing without, those Dortmund fans. And by no means am I putting Dortmund on the same level as Luton Town at all. They never will be. But I feel like just they would have made it an intimidating atmosphere, if we are being honest with ourselves. It's a very unique garden shed of a stadium where the fans are right on top of the players. So I think that it will certainly play into our hands. I remember Nathan Jones said last time at Vicarage Road how it just didn't feel like a derby, and I think that's probably because the fans weren't in the stadium to kind of create that atmosphere. And I feel like we could see a similar situation where it just on the pitch it could feel like a normal game. Not for us as fans, but because the fans aren't in the stadium, it could take out that intimidating aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a tactical standpoint, Elliot, what do we need to change anything, if anything, going into tomorrow? Do we just simply play our own game? Because we've mentioned it so many times on the channel about how potentially we need to look out for these things and with the opposition. But actually, if we go with our best team, surely that's the way we should approach it. Or would you opt differently?
Yeah, we've got all the capabilities to beat this Luton team. They've struggled at times this season. They've been a bit inconsistent. They've beaten some teams that they probably shouldn't have beaten, and they've lost to some teams that they absolutely should have beaten. So I think it's one of those things where if we do turn up, we play at 100% of what we're capable of, then I think we'll be completely fine. But it's just trying to get over any derby nerves, which I'm sure will be there in fragments here and there. I don't think we'll let it sort of control the narrative of the game as much as Luton might, and that's no slight on them. I think the position they're in the table, that they're not going to be getting playoffs this season, and to their credit, they're completely clear of relegation. There's no worries there. So this is going to be a big game for them, and with Nathan Jones, who is clearly very, very passionate about the club, and he's clearly a Luton supporter, as is Mick Harford, the assistant. So they're going to be really, really up for this, and it's just about being in the right frame of mind going into this game, and tactically that it's a weird one with them because defensively they're quite strong. They've only conceded one more this season than the likes of Reading and two more than Barnsley, and they're up in the top 7. So, but then at the same time, I think they've scored less goals this season than Rotherham. And Rotherham have played less games than Luton. So it's really a question of getting a goal early and avoiding a 0-0 draw. I don't know if they'll be up for a draw. From Luton's perspective, I imagine they will just go for a win and really try and spoil the party. So we need to be prepared for that, and we need to get an early goal, because I think at that point, then we've really caused them problems.
Yeah, Elliot makes a really good point there, Sam, doesn't he, about the mentality of this Watford team. It does feel, I think you might have mentioned it in one of the videos about how we just need to keep our head for this one, because I think Zhao I think it was in the reverse game, Zhao was getting very kind of worked up, and even at the end when Troy came on and he slammed Norrington Davies, didn't he, in the corner. So it will be a feisty effect. I guess from your perspective, is that the one concern you have with this fixture, is that potentially it could boil over and it could maybe become a bigger game because of the derby nature of this one?
I think, I think of Luton away from what I've watched of them this season, and they like to wind up their opposition. They got some very physical players in there who get, very up close to you, and it does kind of worry me that I feel like we could be our own worst enemies on Saturday, because if we turn up, I think we win. Simple as. I think we got a better team than them, and probably we can easily beat them if we turn up. But my problem is that we've seen a lot this season our players lose their heads. I think of Bournemouth away. I think we lost that because we lost our heads. I think of other games where certain moments where players haven't shown discipline, where we've lost games in those moments. And I fear the likes of João Pedro, who has an elbow on him away from when the ref's not looking, or the likes of Nathaniel Chalobah even, who can go in for those tackles and become probably overly aggressive. And I fear that we could instigate our own downfall if we're not careful. So I'd say discipline is going to be the most important thing for us.
Yeah, and I guess actually you mentioned the Bournemouth game, Sam. Elliot, from your point of view, I actually think that could potentially, obviously we'll find out on Saturday, but that could serve us in good stead. The fact we've had a game like that before going into this one, because it did boil over there. I think when, after the game, it was pretty clear that the players were annoyed by it. Do you think actually it does feel like that is a big aspect of the game if Watford can keep their heads? From your point of view, do you feel like that could be one of the kind of the big points, big things we need to look out for from this Watford team?
Yeah, definitely. I think Luton will be out to wind the Watford players up, and for good reason. And it makes sense if you're playing against a side that is performing better than you at the moment. You're going to do anything you can to try and get that advantage. I think that's just football, and that's Championship football. And it's probably then exaggerated further in a rivalry. And I guess we can call Watford-Bournemouth a rivalry. And we've seen that this season to the point where we did see things boil over. And I think that is a lesson learned, and hopefully that means that corner's been turned. I think it has been. We've heard from sort of press conferences, we've heard from interviews, and we heard from Tom Cleverley himself in getting to know that they did sort of think it through and go, right, that wasn't good. We need to stop that basically, and we need to turn a corner. So I think they will be prepared for that. I think that will be something that's going through Xisco Muñoz's mind. I think they'll be pretty prepared to take on anything that comes their way. And having Troy Deeney in the dressing room and Tom Cleverley in the dressing room, as Ben Foster has said in an interview that they'll be coming in to offer support. I think that will help a lot. There are enough leaders in the dressing room, and we haven't seen the complacency in Watford that we might have seen in other years, where all of these banana skins that we've spoken of, we've sort of jumped over them pretty well. Birmingham was considered a banana skin, and we comfortably beat them. Sheffield Wednesday, not as comfortable. Reading, not as comfortable. But again, we managed it. We beat two very good teams, and they've both had pretty important wins this season since then and from there. So I think it is a question of just jumping over the banana skin, avoiding any complacency, which we've been pretty good at so far, and just getting the job done. And from what they're all saying and from what the head coach is saying, I think they're all pretty prepared for that, and they'll be ready to take on that challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking back on that Reading game, Sam, what did you take away from it? Because I think, heading into Saturday, I don't know how much you read into that Reading result, but certainly it wasn't a vintage Watford performance despite the scoreline. Do you think we were slightly lucky last week? Or do you think it was a fully deserved win?
It's a really difficult one, because it's one of those games which are based on, those fine margins, where so often this season in the Championship generally, you see those games decided on that. Like if Puskas had scored that really good chance before half time, then, who knows what could have happened. Or, they had quite a few moments where they probably think, if we got back in the game here. So I don't think you can say we didn't get lucky with that. And also two absolute wonder goals where, Sarr, his quality is a cut above the rest of everyone in this league. So yeah, I would say we did get lucky. I would say though, just similar to what Elliot was saying before in terms of avoiding banana skins, I think it's a sign of a good team, and particularly a promotion winning team, where you can get these wins and these points when you're not playing well. And I think particularly since the international break, something that I've noticed is that we are getting these points, even though we haven't really hit the heights that, we saw before the international break. So certainly we need to improve on that Reading performance. Certainly I feel like we need to show some more, I don't want to say fight, because we showed plenty of fight to win the game, but probably a bit more aggression and a bit more.
They're not too much. It's that fine line, isn't it? Yeah.
It's that fine line where, I would say that Zhao was probably trying to put some aggression into the game where he elbowed. I can't remember who it was now, but yeah, exactly. It's just about showing more energy in the game and putting more energy into it, and not letting moments of the game just ride by and taking it by the scruff of the neck. And I feel like that's what we really do need to change from the Reading performance to the Luton game.
Yeah, and to be fair, Elliot, if you didn't watch the game, you'd think it was, I don't know, not comfortable for Watford, but I think certainly you were at the game on Friday night, and it was a great game, to be fair, for the neutral. From your point of view, how did you view it, and how did you view the Watford performance? Because as Sam said, I think we weren't at our maybe in top gear, but again, a sign of a good side is that we're getting the job done. From your perspective, how did you view that Watford win?
Yeah, and I think you make your own luck as well. Of course, to an extent, there are things that can just fall your way, and there are fortunate points like Lewis Gibson, I think it was, the Reading left back. He made a couple of key errors, and at points it did lead directly into Sarr, and it fell perfectly into Sarr's hands. So there are points where we did get lucky, but you do make your own luck. I thought the defence were pretty solid for most of the game. I thought it was only really in the midfield that I had a couple of problems, and where I thought the passing probably should have been better. I hope that's not a long-term issue. I hope that's something that's sort of amended now, and having a week of training now without any midweek game will hopefully really help that. So I think it's a lot of the time it was passing. Last Friday, I thought we didn't pass it out the back as well as we have done before the international break in particular. I think that the midfielders need to show a little bit more for for the back four, and I think just letting things fall back into place. And we use the phrase letting things click and having things click and fall into place a lot. And I think it is one of those things of just letting it sort of fall back into place again after what was a pretty frustrating international break with having so many players away and having such a quick turnover back into the normal season. So I think having this week to sort of reset, focus on tactics, focus on the next opponent, but also on the opponent after that, because it's another quick turnover in games. I think that would really help us. And in terms of the Reading performance, it was lucky at points, and we were fortunate not to concede to points to, I think, Elise at one point and Puskás, as Sam has mentioned. So there were fragilities in that team, but I think a week's training should fix that. And if it hasn't, then I would be a little worried.
Do you reckon, Elliot, that they've planned for both because of the turnover in games, do you reckon they've kind of done their prep for both Luton and Norwich now in the space of this week?
I think, like, in terms of on the pitch stuff, I think so, in terms of shape, but I know that they do a lot of work on video and looking at analysis, and the analysts that are there do a lot of work on helping them out and showing them positions on tactics boards, that sort of thing. So I think in terms of individually focusing on Norwich's style of play, I think that probably hasn't been done as much, but they've definitely focused on Luton. They'll be focusing on how they take their set pieces. They'll be focusing on how they deal with the wide threats, because I don't think they do it particularly well. And then I think it will be more the individual bits and bobs with Norwich that they'll focus on Sunday and Monday.
Well, I was going to say, Elliot, I think you made a really good point there about the kind of the gap between the two fixtures, right? I think it's 8 days in between Friday and Saturday's game against Luton. I think particularly I noticed that as well in terms of the intensity of this Watford side. You could tell the fixture schedule had really kind of affected their style of play. And I think the way Xisco Munoz wants them to play as well, because it is high intensity, it's a high press as well. And I think, as you said, particular players who have played a lot this season needed a break. And I think that, fingers crossed, comes to our advantage on Saturday. Sam, from your perspective, I've got a question here from Amy, who said, would you want to see any changes to the lineup from last week?
I'm trying to think what the team was. So I think by reading the team news today, it looks like it's going to be late calls on both Troost-Ekong and Chalobah. I try my absolute best to get both of them in the team. I know Troost-Ekong has arguably been probably our most shaky player. People say it's the weak point in the team, but I think it's just too late in the season to try and develop new centre-back partnerships. And I think Sierralta and Troost-Ekong, while it's still, it's not perfect, I think it's probably our strongest one until the end of the season and reassess it in whatever league we're in next year. I don't think I would make any changes. I think I am happy. I am happy with hopefully how we will set up, and it'll be good to hopefully have Tom Cleverley back on the bench as well, as he'll be a really good presence on the bench and in the dressing room, and also hopefully to bring on if we're chasing a goal or seeing out the 3 points. So I don't think I would make any changes. No.
Yeah, I think having Troy, Tom and Ben in and around the squads on Saturday is absolutely vital, absolutely crucial, isn't it?
I think just the side point as well. I know we've spoken about banana skins a bit as well, but if you're looking back on the previous game against Luton, I would say we got a bit lucky there as well. I didn't think we played too great. I thought just before Zhao's goal, they probably should have gone 1-0 up. I think they hit the bar, or Ben Foster made a really good save. And I think after that, they really troubled us. But I remember we just never really got going that day. And it
does feel like an early goal is crucial in this one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really important.
I think it's more crucial for Luton as well, because they do pretty well if they get that first goal. They'll likely see it out. If they go 1-0 up, I don't want to scare too many people, but they are pretty good at holding a lead. So it's important that we're the ones that get the early goal. And if we don't get the early goal, we need to stop them from getting the early goal, because that will completely define the game. They don't score too many, they don't concede too many. So it will be a game of a few goals. Obviously, Derby Day, everything is thrown out the window. We could be talking about a 4-3 on Saturday night, but I think it's just important to stop them from scoring first and then sort of work from the back and try and get an early goal as well.
Yeah, Caroline agrees with you, Elliot. She says, importance of an early goal would help the team and settle our nerves. From your perspective, Elliot, would you make any changes from that team? I guess the question really is whether Troost and Chalobah will be fit. But even just assume they are fit, would you make any changes from that Reading team?
I would try my best to get Tom Cleverley in. The fact that he was sort of mentioned in the same breath as William Troost-Ekong and Nathaniel Chalobah gives me a bit of hope. I think he's the experience that would be perfect for a game like this. We've said more, I think more recently than before the international break, that that Tom Cleverley has been needed in this Watford team. Before that, we sort of coped without him. But yeah, he'd be perfect for a game like this, and I think he would really, really thrive in that midfield. So I'd do everything possible to get him back.
Who would you bring him in for, though, Elliot? I'm going to have to ask you that, mate.
I think Philip Zinkernagel. Yeah. And actually, I've seen a lot of unfair criticism for Zinkernagel, and that's not me jumping on that at all, because I think he's actually been pretty good, and I think he offers us something going forward in midfield that I don't think we can get without him. But I just think it leaves a little to be desired in a game like this if you've got Philip Zinkernagel in midfield in terms of going back and playing defensive football. And I just think Tom Cleverley offers the best of both worlds. Yeah, there can be a couple of gaps in the midfield. I think Elise, Yadom and Ejaria all ran through our midfield at one point or another on Friday. So I think Cleverley just offers that positional awareness and that experience as well in a game like this. So yeah, it's I think Cleverley for Zinkernagel. I've seen a couple of calls of Ngakia for Kiko. I don't know what you two think of that, but I don't think it's time for that just yet. I understand Ngakia needs more game time, and I'd like to see him get as much game time as possible. But if it's at the expense of Kiko Femenir, I don't know about that.
Yeah, you can't take Kiko out. Yeah. I mean, he's been well, in my opinion. Let us know in the comments, but he's been my player of the season. We'll probably do a video on it or something. But actually, we'll save it. Don't say it. Don't say it, lads.
I think for me, I think this is why I think it's not. Obviously, it's not the priority of why to get up as early as we can. But I'm hoping that by Brentford, Swansea, that we have the opportunities perhaps to see. I reckon we're more likely to see Joseph Hungbo would get a start if we're already up. We'll see Ngakia get a start. We'd see. I know we'd see more players start games who probably have been on the fringes a bit this season, and I'd say that would be another advantage to going up before the final two games. But game by game,
don't want to look too ahead.
Yeah, exactly. No, don't want to look too far.
No, of course. I think that's a really interesting point. Actually, I mean, from my perspective, Sam, I wouldn't. I wouldn't change it now. Yeah. No. I was actually going to ask you about Cleverley. Elliot was kind of, if he's fit, you've got to play him. Now, I think that's a great shout, because I think what Clevs gives you, not only in terms of what the leadership qualities, as we touched on in that chat with him, make sure you check out if you haven't watched, or if you want to watch it back. But we touched on the leadership qualities of Clevs, and we also touched upon the way he sets the tone of this Watford team. And I think particularly if he turns up on Saturday, he very much, I don't know, you feel if Cleverley turns up when he plays, the rest of the players kind of lift their game a little bit, similar to when Troy's playing it at his best. From your perspective, if he's fit, would you put in Tom Cleverley?
I'd say no. I don't think it's the game for him to start. I think a fit Tom Cleverley 100%, but I don't think we would.
So let's see if he is fit. If he is fit.
I think it's an injury that it takes time to kind of bed yourself back into the side, and it's not one that
a bit risky.
Yeah, you can't on Derby day and on a game of the stakes that we've got riding on this, you can't have a player who's going to be 70% fit and only going 70% into tackles. And that's not criticism of Tom Cleverley. It's just observing players coming back after knee injuries. And I think, maybe if it was against the kind of another team at Vicarage Road where the pitch would be a bit better, and perhaps then the question comes in. But as an impact player off the bench and and in the dressing room, I think it's definitely, yes, it's a perfect play to have there, but I wouldn't start him just yet.
Speaking of the midfield, Elliot, I've got to ask you about La Roca, Carlos Sanchez. Now, he was phenomenal, I thought, when he came on against Reading on Friday. And I think I tweeted out actually about how we gained that control back when he came onto the pitch. Now, you mentioned that Tom Cleverley could potentially give us a bit more in the midfield. Would you be tempted to actually maybe go with two, maybe more defensively minded midfielders to get a bit of a grip of that midfield? Sorry, mate. Go on. Sorry.
If do you mean like starting Carlos Sanchez? Because if so, I would say no, just because the 45 minutes he played against Reading was the first 45 minutes he's played in a long time. So to start him now in a game like this where the intensity is set from the off and he has to sort of set the intensity to be pretty high, I don't think that's sort of what he's offered us. I think I like how he sort of controls the tempo and maybe slows it down when he comes on. You see he dictates all the play when he comes on. He was brilliant against Reading. And he, I was surprised because I didn't actually know he spoke English, and he came into the post-match press conference and spoke really, really eloquently, and it was really interesting to hear from him talking about life at Watford, because he's only been here for about a month, just over a month. So
I forget he's 36, Elliot. I can't believe he's 36
as well. And I think they're the sort of players you need, and we've been crying out for that. We said before, we mentioned loads of them, that we just needed those types of players just to offer that experience and to offer that sort of tactical nous. He knows what he's doing. He's been around for a long time, and I think he's really offered us exactly what we need. So I'd feel bad for him if he wasn't offered a contract at the end of the season. I'd understand it if he wasn't, but yeah, I think he's just such a great impact sub. I feel like impact's the wrong word, because he's not in your face in the sense that he's going to be running at every defender, but he does bring such an impact in the midfield, and he just controls the play so well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Elliot. I don't. It's an interesting one with Carlos, because, as you said, he does give us a bit more of a control in the midfield, and I think we lacked that against Reading. Having said that, though, I guess Luton will approach the game a bit differently. Sam, I'll ask the same question to you. Is that someone who you'd look to bring on rather than starting Carlos Sanchez?
Yeah, definitely. It's just someone who's really good to just shield that back four when, you're holding on to a lead, or even when you're taking off one of the midfielders for someone more attacking, and you just need someone just to sit back a bit more when you're chasing a goal. I feel like he's a really good player to have. He's really versatile. He can offer us a lot, and I feel like it's a really good player to have off the bench, but probably not starting, no.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, we'll have a little look through your comments. Ed says, Pedro has been poor for a while and too hot-headed for this one.
I was thinking about this, actually. He's on a bit of a goal drought. I don't think any Watford fans really spoken about this. It must be, 7-8 games now without a goal for João Pedro. But I feel like the reason why Watford fans haven't spoken about this, and I've touched on this before, is because he offers so much more than other strikers at this football club, that even when he's not scoring, he's holding up play. He's bringing. He's really good at bridging that gap between the midfield and the attack, and he offers us so much more in terms of linking up the play, particularly with the wingers as well. Which I think why, João Pedro's goal drought can be overlooked, but I wouldn't say he's been poor personally. I just think we need to see some more goals from him. But I think that will come as he becomes more experienced. But he still offers a lot to this Watford side. Yeah,
Charlotte says start João Pedro, but keep an eye on him and bring him off if he's getting overexcited. I think that's probably the one player out of, touch wood, he doesn't get sent off if he does start. He is the one, I think, who could maybe boil over a little bit. I think we saw, as I mentioned in the reverse fixture, where he got a little bit too excited. Let's have a little look through your comments. Some interesting ones. Not a lot of Luton chat in the comments, obviously. Caroline says she is excited and nervous for Saturday. Marty says, I'm so nervous. Lou Orns in the chat says, I would bring Dan Gosling in for this one. Not sure if you've covered it, just tuned in. Thanks for tuning in, Lou. Elliot, with Dan Gosling, is that I kind of, with Carlos Sanchez playing so well on Friday, I kind of skipped over Dan Gosling. Thoughts?
I can completely understand it, and I'm actually I'm sort of on board with it. I think for a game like this, if we just purely base it on Gosling or Zinchenko to start in that midfield, I think I'd maybe go for Dan Gosling, just because of, like we've said with the comparisons of if Cleverley's fit. I think Gosling isn't exactly the same as Cleverley by any means, but I think he sort of offers similar in terms of he will keep that positional awareness, and he knows where he's sitting in the midfield. He knows his role. He's good at playing the ball, and he will help out defensively and bring the ball forward. So, yeah, I think I agree with that. I think obviously my first choice would be Cleverley, and I understand what Zinchenko brings to the attacking play and the creative side. But yeah, Dan Gosling, he's had experience in pretty competitive. Competitive fixtures.
And at this point in the season, Elliot, with Bournemouth in 2014-15, he knows what this period's like to play in. So I think that's a really good shout from Lou. Sam, your perspective, I think Dan Gosling is a big shout, and I think, as Elliot mentioned, with Friday, maybe we lost a little bit of control in that midfield. Obviously, Carlos Sanchez did bring that back when he came on, but Gosling, would you be tempted?
Yeah, I would be. I think it's a real shame just with Philip Zinchenko, because I really don't think he's played that badly.
No, he hasn't.
I just think he just offers something which isn't, I don't want to say not needed in this game, because you always need that creativity, but there's assets that are needed more, such as the graft that Dan Gosling brings, that, you know, Tom Cleverley, Carlos Sanchez bring, and which is why I probably would take Philip Zinchenko out. But again, really good impact. Both of them, Gosling or Zinchenko, whoever starts, whoever's on the bench, both offer really good things, and whoever doesn't start offers a really good thing off the bench as well.
And even if PZ7 doesn't play in central midfield, that doesn't rule him out that he's not going to play out wide. Maybe for Ken, I don't know. There's still a lot up in the air. I think Ken's been a little bit off it recently. I think so. You know, that's something that could be considered, but I probably wouldn't myself. Let's have a little look through your comments. Lou's gone Zinchenko for Sema. I think that's an interesting shout. Jake says, wouldn't mind putting PZ7 on the wing for Sema. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll tell you what, lads, we'll get final thoughts. Sam, starting to feel more nervous now we've done the preview.
Look, we have to back ourselves at the moment with the form that we're in. You know, Derby Day, no form goes out the window, but we have we've got to back ourselves, haven't we? We've got to back ourselves. Yeah, I am confident. I'm confident.
Nice. Elliot, you?
No.
It's often me being the pessimistic one as well.
Yeah. It's so unpredictable, and yeah, like Sam's put it really well. We've got everything at our disposal to win this game. We should win this game, and we've got the capability to do so. So I think, I don't know if we're doing score predictions, but yeah,
we will do score predictions in a moment. That is going to be interesting.
I think that if you remove the derby aspect, like pretend we're doing this and I'm just in a hypothetical world, pretend we're doing this preview and we're not rivals with Luton, and we would be completely backing ourselves, and I don't think there would be the nerves here. So it's just overcoming that Derby Day kind of hype, if you like, and then after that it's just pretty much, I don't want to say a normal game because it's not, but we do have everything at our disposal to win this game comfortably, I think.
It's fairly similar to not in terms of their style of play, but in terms of how we can approach it to Millwall, because Millwall will come to Vicarage Road and they probably won't be able to play the same sort of football as they played at the Den earlier on in the season. But it is a similar thing if you've got two mid-table teams that haven't really got anything to play for. They are looking to cause us problems, and they've got the ability to cause us problems, but we then should win it. So I think they're quite similar games. It's only the derby aspect of the Luton one that we sort of have to put out of our heads. There's a very interesting interview on the club website and on the YouTube channel with Ben Foster that they did recently, where he basically said that they're going to try and not talk about that. They said if you put any more energy into it and more focus on the derby aspect of it, then you're probably not doing yourselves a favour. So yeah, as long as we take the derby aspect out of it, I think we should be fine.
And I guess just to wrap up, really, I think we mentioned at the top of the show about having, we've mentioned fans not being there all season. I think particularly for this game, out of every single game in the Championship season, not having fans at Kenilworth Road at this point in the season is only a good thing for Watford. And I think actually that's advantage Watford already before we kick a ball, particularly with our impeccable home form. But, going away to Kenilworth Road is going to be a difficult one. We've got some very confident score predictions in the chat. Amy's gone for a 2-0 Watford. Joseph's 2-0. Caroline's gone 3-1. Jake's gone 2-1. Martin's gone 3-0. Bold. Matt's gone 3-0. Saar to score a couple. Rich has gone 2-0. Charlotte couldn't actually write Luton. 2-1 Watford. And Hornet Shane, 3-0 Horns. Big. Sam, score predictions for Saturday, buddy.
Luton Town 1, Watford 2.
Sorry, before we get to Elliot's score predictions, someone did say I'm a little bit nervous that Elliot isn't at the game on Saturday. Now, Elliot, is there any way we can get you down to Kenilworth Road?
There might be holes in the walls there or anything like that.
Just knock on, isn't it? Just knock on the door and climb through someone's fence, and you're in. There's always a way.
Unfortunately, not. There's no opportunity for me to.
He'll be there in spirit. Elliot, score predictions, buddy.
I think we'll edge it 1-0.
It's not going to be a good game. Can I just say, for the neutral, wanting to tune in for the derby, I think it's going to be one of the worst games this season that we would have watched. I think they're going to make it incredibly scrappy. I think we could struggle on the quality of their pitch and the size of that pitch as well. So I think it's going to be a really scrappy game.
Big game. Derby Day, Saturday, Luton versus Watford. We'll be here on WD18 after the game. Fingers crossed after another Watford win. We're in incredible form at the moment. It's the crunch time of the season. Promotion is in our sights, but it's a big game. Hopefully we get 3 points. Thank you to everyone who watched today. We really do appreciate it. And make sure you do follow all our content here on WD18 by clicking the subscribe button down below. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Don't forget to comment down below your thoughts, and we'll see you very, very soon. Come on, you Hornets.